Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, your ears are not deceiving you or playing tricks on you. This is the Scarifyer podcast.
Surprise.
Scream for your life! To a new world of gods and monsters.
Good God, man. What happened?
I've done it, Trent. At long last, I've done it. I finally duplicated my father's formula for invisibility. After 5 years of injecting myself with every chemical known to man.
But Griffin, the invisibility formula turned your father into a raving lunatic.
That's right, talk to the old man. I've been on this stuff for over a week now, and I'm still perfectly sane. Yes, I'll rule the world with my secret. Yes, and I'll need you, Trent. I must have a visible partner. I can tell by your stunned expression that you're pretty impressed.
No, Griffin, you don't have to go all the way.
Yes. Just listen for the sound of my voice. Then you'll know where I am at all times. Come on, let's have some laughs. Griffin! Being invisible is the best.
Yes, Psycho Nation, we are back. Well, we haven't really gone anywhere. You can kind of maybe imply that we've been invisible.
Good one.
Which leads us into our topic today. We are on the Scarifyer podcast talking about Blumhouse's Invisible Man 2020. In case you forgot, I am the Ace.
And I am the Gov.
And we have a guest with us today. Gov, will you introduce our guest?
Well, considering this movie is a very specific agenda, I thought that what better way than to get a third-party impression. Plus, we haven't had a guest host on the show in a little while, so why not have a female guest host who has a lot to say about this film? May I introduce Kira Walker. How's it going, Kira?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Not bad.
All right, Kira, before we get into the review of the movie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history and feelings on the horror genre and why you're such a fan?
Horror genre really started with my dad. He had a collection of the old comic books when he was younger, and we found it when we moved.
That's awesome.
It got me really curious about it, and my sister and I started picking through it, and we started doing research about the Universal monster movies. There was also like merchandising ads. We just started researching it. Really grabbed our interest, so we started watching it. Psychological horror has also been a major part of books and literature with my family. So basically I was brought up with it. It's a fun, exciting genre that you can do so much creativity with it, and that's important.
Are you familiar with the H.G. Wells original novel that this movie, in quotes, is based around?
I read it a really, really long time ago, probably when I was like 12 or 13, so I haven't read it in many years. I'm getting old, so.
Yeah, aren't we all?
So, we want to do something a little bit more fun. So we came up with this idea. We're going to call it the Scary 5. And this is going to be the official Scarifyer top 5 category. Every week we're going to have a new category. We're going to rank a top 5 based on that category. So, in the spirit of the Invisible Man and the Universal Monsters, this week's category is the original Universal Monsters.
Scarify.
First movies or standalone movies. Kira, you're the guest. Number 5.
Number 5 probably would have to be Dracula.
Oh!
I know.
Dracula.
I know.
Okay.
Oh!
I know.
Okay, well, that was Kira. We're going to kick her out of Psycho Nation right now. Thank you very much, and thank you for wasting our time.
Well, all right, let's be fair. Brief defense.
It's just been done so many times.
Yeah, but this was the first time.
No, I get that. I do. It's been done so many times, and there's so much different interpretation of it. That's all.
All right. Well, Gov, number 5.
Well, my number 5 is really relevant to this topic. It would be 33's Invisible Man.
Okay, defend it.
Defend why it's number 5?
Yep.
Well, I mean, obviously I like the film as it's making a top 5 list, but in terms of the canon of Universal monster movies, this one doesn't really stand out. Plus, I think it's really heavy on its black humor, or dark humor rather. Which is a signature of James Whale, but it doesn't really, nothing that really stands out as like Universal monster to me. 'Cause it's also more of a science fiction film. Obviously, I still like it though, but yeah, it's at number 5 for me.
All right. Well, my number 5 is going to be completely different than probably anybody's. I went to a personal favorite of mine. I'm going to went 1935's The Raven.
Oh,
That one's good.
that's obscure.
So, for those of you who are not familiar, this is the second movie which featured the pair of Karloff and Lugosi. Normally, when you talk about the pairing, you either get Son of Frankenstein or The Black Cat. Just my personal preference, I've always loved evil Lugosi over evil Karloff.
Yeah.
In their pairings. So, and again, you got Karloff in a monster makeup, and you got Lugosi torturing people via Edgar Allan Poe. So, Kira, that brings us to number 4.
Ironically enough, Boris Karloff's Mummy.
Interesting.
Solid.
You have chosen wisely.
I find it interesting that you put it ahead of Dracula, even though that film pretty much is a remake of Dracula, just with an Egyptian legend on it, even down to the same actors. What the hell?
It is a similar story.
Similar.
It is a similar story. Don't get me wrong.
Uh-huh.
The only thing that I like more about The Mummy as opposed to Dracula is Dracula was based off of an original person, but they did take a lot of measures to make it different. They took a lot of different creativity for it. As opposed to Mummy, he was a actual true person that actually had historical fact behind it. And yes, they did throw in different aspects of it for Hollywood, for entertainment purposes, but there is a solid history behind it, and I do like that.
Fair enough.
Gov, your turn. Number 4.
Going to the Black Lagoon. Number 4 would have to be the original creature from the Black Lagoon. It's one of my childhood favorites. I'm not going to really go into defending it because you can click right here and go straight to our episode on the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yes, in the archive. All right, then I'm going to take my number 4 pick to the Wolfman.
Really? I thought that would be higher.
It was tough. It flopped between 3 and 4.
Gotcha.
I'll give you that. Kira, number 3.
I'm actually going to spin right off of you. Wolfman is 3 for me.
Very good. And why number 3?
I liked the beginning of special effects makeup in that era. That's when they really started to experiment with it. That's when they started to play with the idea of it. It started to get more elaborate, and I liked that.
All right, Gov, let's hear it. Number 3.
Number 3, actually, this was tough. It was down to this film and my number 2 film on which was going to place. I ultimately had to ask the ultimate question, what would I rather be stuck on a desert island with? So for number 3, it is going to be Dracula for me.
Dracula.
Yeah, I do love this film a lot. Only slightly, not as much as my final 2 on the film, but talk about influential, talk about the groundbreaker, talk about the one that set the bar with Lugosi.
Kira, you and I, we got our list kind of flip-flopped. I picked The Mummy for number 3. For those who know me, I am the biggest Karloff mark in the world, and his performance in this movie is just out of this world. All right, moving on to number 2. Kira, give it to us.
Phantom of the Opera.
Which one?
Claude Rains or Lon Chaney Sr.?
Lon Chaney.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Respect.
That just missed my list.
Really?
That just missed my list.
Just under the radar.
All right, so let's...
Absolutely.
Gov, give us number 2.
Number 2, James Whale's Frankenstein.
Ooh.
The original Frankenstein. What do you say about this movie that hasn't already been said, or you can't give it enough praise for what it is and what it done for the genre? And
beautiful. My number 2 is Dracula. Because 1 and 2, we're getting into this super iconic. When you see Dracula today, you think of collared cape, widow's peak, pale face. This is Bela Lugosi. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody argues. He made this image. And Dracula 1931 really, got the ball rolling for American horror as we speak. Lon Chaney had his movies, but this really made the horror genre was Dracula. And it, was released on what would be my birthday in 1987.
Oh, there you go.
So, fuck it. Dracula. Kira, number 1.
The big one.
Probably a really unpopular one, but Creature of the Black Lagoon.
I wouldn't say that's unpopular.
No, respect. We did a whole episode on it, like I said.
Listen, when you talk about merchandise, there's more creature shit than there is anybody else.
That's true.
So, he's got more shit than Gene Simmons.
That's saying a lot.
So, all right, so...
Who owns the phrase "Man of a Thousand Faces," by the way, going back to your Phantom?
Well, it's Gene Simmons.
Yeah, I know.
So, all right, so why is Creature from the Black Room your number 1?
I like the originality. It's not something that has been overdone, like over and over. There haven't been a ton of remakes. It's still original. I like the waterworks and the water shots in the movie.
Which
innovative.
Of its time.
State of the art.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It was a big thing when it came out. It was visually stunning. And again, they just haven't overdone it. And that's what I really like. They've kept it pretty safe and in its own little realm.
Gov, number 1.
Number 1, this one was actually easy for me. It goes to the Wolfman. Sorry, Mummy did not make my list for you guys, but
can't please everybody.
Exactly. No, Wolfman is my favorite and will always be my favorite. It is, I believe, if not one of the first ones I've ever saw. I remember as a child constantly renting it from the video store. One of the first VHSs I've ever had, the 1992 MCA Monster Classic Collection version with the amazing cover art.
I bid you welcome.
MCA Universal Home Video announces the Universal Studios Monsters Classic Collection.
The cinematography is beautiful. The music is beautiful.
Sure.
The set design, the art, everything.
And much like my number 1, what I love about the Wolfman is you don't know where it is. It's a make-believe.
Exactly. It keeps a fantasy to it. It's a movie where in the same shot you have modern motorized cars, but also horse and buggies. You know what I mean?
Again, another great number 1. My number 1 will be no surprise. It's Frankenstein, 1931. Mm-hmm. I got 3 Karloff movies in my top 5. Yeah. What does that tell you? Mm-hmm. So if Frankenstein's not number 1, I got problems.
Yeah.
Again, it was my very first ever watched ever horror movie. Frankenstein was it, and it's never changed. Mm-hmm. What can you say? The movie is just absolutely brilliant. I think it's one of the closest things to a perfect movie that you can come to. Karloff is just out of this world. Colin Clive matches him. Mm-hmm. It was just the perfect mix of everything, and then you put in the Jack Pierce makeup. Again, like Dracula, that is Frankenstein. I don't care what anybody says. However they want to, re-image Frankenstein, or it's green face, flat top, bolt in the neck, scar in the forehead. That is Frankenstein. That is Boris Karloff Frankenstein. So, all time, top 5 Universal monsters. Number 1 is and always will be Frankenstein.
Scarifyer.
All right, you psychos, and that's it. That's the very first Scarify. And that was a lot of fun, but we want you to get in on the action as well. So after you've done listening to our rant today, go on our social media, go to our Twitter and our Facebook, and look for the Scarify post. In the comments, give us your top 5, and if we see anything interesting, amusing, or straight up bullshit, who knows? We'll call you out on the show. And now for what we're really here for today, The Invisible Man, produced by Blumhouse, starring Elizabeth Moss. Gov, it's your show.
All right, as with always, before our reviews, we go into the backstory of the production history, and this one has a long one, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. They started developing an Invisible Man remake as early as 2006 and 2007 with David S. Goyer attached to write the screenplay, but as of 2011, there was no progress and they ultimately canceled the film. Jump forward to 2016, where Ed Sullivan was hired to write the screenplay for The Dark Universe. Everyone remember The Dark Universe and how that was never a thing?
How could we forget?
Yeah. Johnny Depp was attached to be the lead in the project. However, after things unraveled, with The Mummy, and it bombed at the box office, all plans for The Invisible Man was canceled. Until in 2019, Jason Blum expressed interest in reviving the Universal monsters as standalone films. And in a meeting with Lee Whannell about his movie Upgrade, he pitched him his original thoughts, which was ultimately a retelling and a retake of the Invisible Man story. The film was made and released on February 27th, 2020, so currently it is still in theaters as we're recording this, and it is also #1 at the box office, so far grossing $50.4 million on a $7 million budget. So it was profitable.
So this movie's doing well as of this recording. We've gotten through one weekend. What I did for this show, which is something that I don't normally do when we review movies, is I read reviews and watched reviews. Mm-hmm. And guys, we saw this together, all three of us, and we had our opinions, and the majority don't share our opinions. So this is going to be a very unpopular review.
It's not an unpopular review, but we have the unpopular opinion. This is, as of right now, a very well-liked movie. It's making a lot of money. It's #1 at the box office, but people seem to share a consensus of it's really good, which I don't think is ours. So if you don't like that, you can stop listening right now because we don't care. We don't want you to listen to us if you don't like us.
And brace yourself. This is going to be very spoiler-filled. So if you have not seen the movie, press pause, come back later.
And if you're a little snowflake who can't handle this world crashing down because somebody spoiled a fucking movie for you, press pause, go to the theater, watch the movie, come back to us.
All right, so let's rewind a little bit. Kira, when you first heard about Universal wanting to remake the monsters, in particular the Invisible Man, what did you think at first?
Honestly, I was hoping that it was going to go more along the lines of what they did with 99's Mummy, kind of sticking to the original idea, but with a little bit more advancement with it, that I was totally fine with. When Mummy came out, that kind of dampened my hopes for it a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
The Tom Cruise one?
Exactly. Because, I mean, that they just totally basically ripped that whole thing apart, and it kind of dampened the opinion of, great, what are they going to do with this? Something that is a very iconic film, something that was very different, especially for the time. What are they going to do to it? So I was kind of 50-50 about it.
Gov?
To me, this movie kind of came out of nowhere because they were so actively developing this dark universe, which was just fools on them for developing an entire franchise like this without the success of even one movie. I mean, you can't beat Marvel at Marvel's game, so I don't know why. It seems like it was a fad that's currently stopped, but at the time, everyone was trying to play catch up to Marvel, and they were just going about it the wrong way. And to have Ed Solomon write a draft with Johnny Depp set to star before they got their ducks in a row was silly to me. But then all of a sudden, Jason Blum's like, hey, I want to take on the monsters. Here's this Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss. Okay, where'd this come from? But what I want to know is what your initial thoughts were, Ace, in retrospect to the movie we saw.
Okay. All right, listen.
And get ready for the shit.
All right. So here we go. Every time that they've announced that they're going to redo the monsters, I've always gotten excited because I want my monsters back on the movie screens. Mm-hmm. I want to see my monsters again. I want them living in new adaptations and in new visions. But I've always wanted them to stay true to my monsters at the same time. When we got the Wolfman and they completely missed the point of the Wolfman, I was disappointed. When we got Dracula Untold and Dracula became a folk hero instead of the devil himself, I was pissed off. The Mummy movies from the 90s, I enjoyed because the Mummy does work in a action-adventure thriller. Tom Cruise's Mummy, on the other hand, it seemed like, again, on top of like the Gov just said, trying to launch an MCU version of the monsters, which is stupid anyway because they had the original cinematic universe. If you really think about it.
If you do, yeah, it was these movies, the originals, that started that crossover, everything's connected trend way back in the fucking 40s.
But, all right, so and I know we were supposed to do a show on this, but again, that's a long story. When you watch the movie, you saw two movies. You saw a movie that at one point was supposed to be really scary, and then someone got nervous and said, Tom Cruise, do your Mission Impossible thing. Mm-hmm. And it became a clusterfuck. Because honestly, I really liked the Mummy. I liked the female Mummy aspect. I thought she was scary. I thought she was decent. But they just crapped all over it. They didn't have a consistent story to really, that was my opinion on it.
For those of you listening, you don't have the pleasure of visual. The whole time when you just said that the female Mummy was good, Kira was shaking her head in disgust. So that means that if we ever get to that Mummy review, we might have to invite Kira back.
My body was rejecting it. I'm not even going to lie.
You can go one-on-one with the Ace on a different show. All right.
And I'll be the ref. The Gov will just moderate.
All right. So moving on, they canceled the Dark Universe, which good call.
Yeah,
very good call.
Cut your losses.
And then, so I know how you're going to come at me.
Yeah.
When I heard Blumhouse was taking on the Invisible Man, and it was backed by Universal, I was riding the high of Halloween 2018 because I champion that movie still to this day. That movie was absolutely fantastic and what the Halloween franchise needed. Now, I'm looking at that and thinking Jason Blum is going to do the similar to the Invisible Man through Universal. That is not what we got. Well, and I eat my words.
Yeah, you are.
From way back when I got excited and I argued with you about it.
Let me get a shovel for you.
And I'll take that, but you can't blame me for thinking that way at the time.
Yeah. Because when I think H.G. Wells, I think Michael Myers.
That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is like he put brand new life into a dead franchise.
No, I know, and we've
made it relevant.
No, I know. We've had this discussion as the movie was coming out. I'm not even gonna say like it's not like a "I told you so" kind of thing. It's a totally "I told you so." But anyway. But that's not what I was saying. I was just saying I was worried because I know what kind of a filmmaker Jason Blum is, and I kind of figure like this is where we were going to go with it. Actually, I thought we were going to go supernatural. I thought the Invisible Man was going to literally be a ghost kind of thing, but that's not what we got. Anyway,
well, all right. Well, then, we're already waist deep, so let's go all the way in. Invisible Man, Jason Blum. Kira?
Lee Winnell, Elizabeth Moss. What'd they
hit us? What did you think upon watching it? Once again, this is going to be very spoiler filled. So if you have not seen the movie and plan on it, hit pause.
Oh my god. I'm trying to decide if I should go gentle or if I should just like rip the Band-Aid off.
Rip the bandages
band-
off
this
his
is-
head
this
that
is
he never
Scarifyer.
wore once in this movie.
This is Scarifyer. This is
Yeah.
for the fans, by the fans, and the fans thinks this movie is a piece of shit. We let
like
them
we
speak.
do.
All right.
Why in the fuck did he waste everybody's time? Like, come on, seriously. If you didn't look at it as a Universal monster movie, the thriller and aspect of psychological horror, I'm totally fine with. Trying to put it in the Universal sub? No. No. Absolutely not.
That's kind of where I'm.
It pissed me off so bad. I was shaking my head in the theater the whole time.
You know what? And this is where I think you and I have common ground on it. Had this movie not been a proclaimed remake, in a restart to the Universal Monster franchise, I would have loved this movie.
Exactly.
Three-quarters of it, or most of it. It was the last 10 minutes that really pissed me off about this movie.
The ending.
We'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
But I really did enjoy the suspense build up.
Mm-hmm.
He had some good jump scares.
Yeah.
I'm a big, my all-time favorite horror movie is Halloween. So subjective horror to me is where it's at. And there was nothing but that in this movie. Just having the camera pan to an empty corner was terrifying.
Yeah, that was good.
Terrifying. And
Quiet emptiness.
so I think my issue is calling it The Invisible Man.
Yeah.
If this was had any other title, this movie would have jumped mega points with me. I would have been like, it's deserving all the credit it's giving, but it's not. It's not The Invisible Man. It's nothing like the H.G. Wells novel, and it certainly isn't anything like the James Whale classic that it's trying to remake.
My problem with the words reimagining or retelling is that these filmmakers think it's their get out of jail free card, that they can literally do whatever the fuck they want without any repercussions or any really boundaries to abide to. And I think that's what we got here. Also, I find it interesting that right before this movie was released, Blumhouse released another horror film, which was a horror spin on a 70s TV show, Fantasy Island, where he admitted something that all producers should just own up and admit. What we do is we take intellectual properties and make original movies and then just slap the name on it because that's what sells. And I think we got a similar case with this Invisible Man. They can put the moniker of Universal Monsters or they can put the moniker of H.G. Wells on it. It has nothing to do with it, but they'll sell, and it's selling.
But my problem.
So I guess my point being is, like, I don't think it was ever their intentions to make a faithful remake or an adaptation of H.G. Wells. I think that was the thing furthest from their mind. I think they had to do the bare minimum, which was have this title character named Griffin, even though it's his last name.
Which is even said in the movie.
Exactly. I know, they don't even call him Griffin. They call him by his first name, which is Adrian in this film.
Yo, Adrian, it's me, Rocky.
And have a man who is, in fact, invisible. That's it. You filled your quota.
I mean, yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, and the thing is, if you want to call it a re-imaging, we already got a re-imaging of The Invisible Man. And it was called Hollow Man, starring Kevin Bacon.
That was more of a modern version than this ever was.
It was a modern version, but at the same time, it was a re-imaging because it really wasn't like the novel, but it had the spirit and the elements of it. This movie didn't even come close. They didn't even try, the Invisible Man's evil from the get-go.
Right.
Had they shown like a descent into madness, I would have been okay with that, but they didn't even try that. I enjoyed Elizabeth Moss's descent into madness. I thought that was clever. Mm-hmm. but that's not Invisible Man.
Right.
Kira?
The thing that I've got going through my mind right now is almost like, as far as Invisible Man is concerned, if you want to call it that, is lack of storyline, in my opinion. It almost felt a little bit more like Blair Witch Project take on it, kind of hybrid between the two of them. Again, unpopular opinion. If it wasn't Invisible Man, it would have been totally fine. But the fact that they did try to label it as an Invisible Man movie, there was no plot to it. He had no background in the H.G. Wells novel and in the original film. He was almost like a revolutionist. He was trying to make a political statement. And this one, he's just a jackass who is trying to get back at somebody.
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of weak in my opinion, but
yeah,
that's me.
I mean, I understand the people who really do like it, and there's a lot of them. That's what makes it relevant, I guess. It's because everyone's been in a bad relationship. Everyone knows someone who's been in a bad relationship.
I get that.
And again, it's not like they missed what they sought out to do. They achieved it.
Right.
The issue is, in the wake of it, it wasn't an Invisible Man story.
That's what my argument is.
Exactly. No, I agree with you 100%.
And I think that's really our biggest bitch coming out of the movie. Had this not been offered to us as the Invisible Man, we probably would have really enjoyed this movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then that goes, and this is for an entirely different rant, but that just goes to my thing of like, why not make it something original? What is wrong with originality these days? Do you have to slap an IP on it every movie you get? You know what I mean? I mean, it's lazy almost to me.
But that goes back to what you were saying. If it's something that sells, they're going to put the label on it. That way, like you said, it's guaranteed. So in their minds, it's a total win. You can't lose. You can't miss it.
Yeah, but it's such a clenched monopoly now for it because, back in the day, E.T. wasn't based on an IP.
That is true.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, pretty much anything Spielberg did with the exception of like Jaws.
Creativity and originality is a lost art, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Someone had to write The Mummy. It was based in legend, but it was essentially original take.
Well, but even so, not many things are original these days, but you can put your own spin on it, but don't call it what it isn't. Again,
Exactly.
this is not The Invisible Man. This was a good horror movie. It was a good psychological thriller. Again, up until the ending, I was behind Elizabeth Moth's character.
Yeah.
You get into the Me Too thing. I read in Fangoria magazine. They were interviewing one of the producers of it, and they said that in 2019 that you basically have to make a Me Too movie out of this.
I know.
I disagree. I think there's no reason why we have you can't just write strong, positive women and have to label it some sort of political movement. It's when we get down to it, movies are entertainment, especially the horror genre, because it's so out there.
Well, I mean, movies are a viable medium to influence and teach and stuff like that. I don't knock movies for doing anything like that or to bring awareness. I agree with you on choosing a Me Too or a movie with a political agenda is almost the fad now, to where it almost kind of undermines it completely. It undermines the movement completely. So that's where we're at in the industry.
Let me ask you this. What's more Me Too than horror? The sole concept of a final girl is Me Too.
Just look at Halloween. That was like the original Final Girl. Why can't that be a standard?
No, I don't understand it. I don't understand
She
it.
came out on top. Why
Sure.
can't you do something like that as opposed to turning your heroine into a villain, basically?
Right.
That's what
I
this
know.
movie did.
I don't agree with it or understand it, but that's the stance producers and studios are taking now. It has to be more.
Okay.
It has to be more.
Yeah. So as we progress into the finale of this movie, which we all agree that we disagree. So basically, what you get is they take out the said Invisible Man. During such time, we find out that it's not the guy that we think it is. The abusive boyfriend that she escapes from the very beginning is still alive and still wants to try to work things out with her. And, long story short, she shows up at his house, steals an invisible suit and kills him, and walks off as the quote-unquote hero.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about...
Is she a hero?
Well, before we get into that, let's talk about what you just said. The suit. Yes. Those who haven't seen this and are still listening to this episode, there is no science involved here except for the science of technology because it's not a potion, it's a suit. Oh, come on! Beginning of this film, they show a lot. It involves her trying to escape his house, and it's a big mansion. It's very Tony Stark-like. And you see, she goes down to his lab, and you see a bunch of headlines and newspaper clippings declaring him a genius in the studies of optics. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, here it is. Here it is. It's a suit. It's technology based. If this movie works on a suspense level, yeah, I'll agree it does. But it has some really dumb, stupid moments that just make me grit my teeth. I'll be honest.
Well, again, if this is not an Invisible Man, it's not that bad,
right?
Am I wrong?
No.
If this is not the Invisible Man, who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, IP aside, it was still kind of dumb. Some of the things I saw in this movie.
Go ahead.
Elaborate.
First of all, predictability is all over this movie. You saw it coming 5 miles away, and I think that's why they tried to subvert your expectations so much. Once we realized that it's not in her head, that she's not going crazy, and it's not a ghost, that is in fact an invisible man, they try to subvert you and say that Adrian Griffin did die. He allegedly committed suicide. He did die, and it's his brother who's been doing it. And then they subvert you again and say, no, he's really alive, and it was kind of a joint effort. That's really dumb. That seems like a tacked-on ending just so the people who predicted it coming could say they got it wrong. You know what I mean? The suit itself is one of the most ridiculous things I ever seen. He looked like the eye guy from Power Rangers.
I thought he looked like a golf ball a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then the first reveal of the Invisible Man, she's in the attic. He's climbing up the ladder to get her. She throws paint on him, and then you see that there's no face, that it's in fact a mask, and it proves that the whole thing's a suit. And then they structure it to her going back to his lab and finding a spare suit. And the movie plays it off as this big revelation. No shit, it's a suit. We know this at this point. Wow, whose mind is blown? Not mine. What bothers me...
Because there's no... the thing is, because it's so artificial, there's no chance for a descent into madness by the Invisible Man himself.
Well, the thing is...
there's no addiction to power.
We can't play the what-if game, though, here anymore, because it is the Invisible Man. It is called The Invisible Man.
Right, which is why it's going to get a shit rating at the end of the show from us.
No, I get that, but you can't really argue by saying but if it wasn't called that, I would be fine with it. But it is called that. You know what I mean? This is what they chose to do with this story, with this character. This is what we got,
Okay. You're being quiet.
I'm thinking a lot. I'm also listening. That's where the smoke is coming out of my head. I don't know. One of the other arguments I have is... I understand, you want to make it more modern, you want to make it more realistic, but my personal opinion, monster movies aren't supposed to be about how realistic it can be. It's supposed to be entertainment. It's supposed to be fantasy or science fiction or whatever. So really...
Belief is supposed to be suspended.
Exactly. So in my opinion, they really did fail the novel, the original movies, everything like that. They completely just spit in its face because they wanted to do the popular opinion, what they wanted to do with it. Mm-hmm. So taking out the whole, if it wasn't Invisible Man aspect of it, we'll just put that to the side for right now. to me, it just kind of felt like a spit in the face. Yeah, this is an original idea, but we're going to do whatever we want to do.
Right.
There was no, like, supernatural element. There was nothing even close to that. It was modern and it was trendy. Felt like a hipster film a little bit.
A little bit. No, I agree with that. It almost felt like what Christopher Nolan did to the Batman films.
God.
He came in and he said, like, we got to make them realistic.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the approach. It's like, how do we make this realistic? Okay, so it's not science at all. It's a suit. All right, but you can't do that. I mean, maybe you could get away with it with the Invisible Man because that's more science fiction, but you can't do that with all your monsters.
No, absolutely
You know what I mean?
not.
God, I'm having actually a hard time pinpointing exactly what bothers me. I might have to see it again. I really don't want to, but I'm having a hard time pinpointing what exactly bothers me at the core of this movie.
I'll tell you right now what bothered it was called Invisible Man to put butts in the seats, and it's not the Invisible Man. And the ending again. We made.
All right, let's talk about the ending. We're
made
chomping at the bits to talk about this ending. We'll backtrack if we have to. But.
Okay, well, the ending. She kills her, abusive boyfriend in cold blood, which she probably deserves.
Mm-hmm.
But she walks away no better than him.
Mm-hmm. So
after all the shit we just went through for the 2 hours that we watched this movie, caring about her and feeling bad for her, she walks away no better than him.
So to add context to those who haven't seen this, or just to kind of align this a bit, toward the end of the movie, you think the movie ends when she confronts the first or second Invisible Man. Yes, there's multiple. Like I said, it's a brother partnership deal. She shoots him. She unmasks him. You realize it's the brother of her boyfriend who's allegedly committed suicide.
Now, let me interject here.
Okay.
Had the movie ended there, it somewhat resembles Whale's ending.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been so much cooler.
As in
with
the,
this,
totally fine.
I would have been so much cooler with this movie had it ended right there.
As in the Invisible Man dies by bullets.
Yeah.
Essentially. So you get that, but then the movie keeps going. You find out that Adrian Griffin has staged a kidnapping to lay all blame on his brother. So saying that his brother faked the suicide and locked him in a drywall for however long, I guess. Wouldn't you think the guy is a little bit more malnourished and dehydrated and not alive, but he wasn't, so whatever. And then Elizabeth Moss's character is determined to get her boyfriend to confess that it was him, that he was the brains, and he was, in fact, the majority Invisible Man who was terrorizing her throughout the course of the film. So she stages a sting where the lead cop character, who is a big character in this movie, listens in on a wire and tries to, as Elizabeth Moss tries to get him to confess that he was the Invisible Man. He doesn't do it, but he does in a way by saying the word surprise to her, which indicates that he was, because that's what the Invisible Man would whisper to her throughout the film. She then gets the spare Invisible Man costume, puts it on, and in front of his video cameras makes it seem like he's slicing his own throat, when in fact it is her doing it. And then the cop who questions her about it as she's leaving looks down at her purse and sees that she has the suit and lets her go. And this is the moment, people. The last shot of the film is a good 5 to 8 second close-up of Elizabeth Moss slowly smiling in a triumphant manner, and then it cuts to black, justifying her actions completely. Go.
Do you want to
You go first.
I said that when we first went out, the fact that, again, it does justify her actions, which, in my opinion, is stupid. Completely stupid.
Shooting the guy who's trying to kill her justifies her actions.
No, that's totally fine. That I can understand. It's the fact of being the heroine and everything like that and saving everybody and then just turning around and you were no better than the guy that was torturing you for so many years. to me, that almost feels a little bit like a weak ending. Too political, in my opinion. That's just me.
Sure, she complains the entire movie of how manipulative he was, and she completely manipulates that cop at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, in the same way that he would do to her. Again, and like, you know, we've both Kira and I have been saying, how is she any better of a character by the end of this movie? She isn't.
And I think that's the problem, is that at the end of the movie, it's played up to be like you're supposed to applaud with her.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Now, had they gone a different direction to say, like, he got to her brain and now she's nuts, and now she's going to be the next invisible person.
That would have been better.
Leading into a sequel, The Invisible Woman. You know what I mean? I also think you didn't need that shot. I wrote a better ending where you don't see her coming out of the bathroom. You just see him pick up the knife and slice his throat. Obviously, there's something off about it by the way he's doing it. She comes out, freaks out, calls the cops. You cut to the cop character. I think his name is James in this film. You cut to James, and he's running, and he goes to her, what happened? And she's distraught and hysterical. I don't know what happened. He just slit his own throat. Check the cameras. He goes in to check the cameras. You see him looking at it, and something's just off about it. Cut to her driving away in a car. Pan down to her bag. There's the costume.
Suit, yeah.
That's such a better ending than this I am woman, hear me roar.
Sure.
Now applaud my triumph, you know.
It's first-degree murder. It's not a triumph.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
Self-defense and first-degree
She had
murder.
such a justified look of, like, now I'm free
Exactly.
on her face.
Right.
You know.
Which is so not a way to go about it. I just want to put that out there.
What more can we say about this?
How about the effects?
The effects?
Yeah.
I think they did a bad job.
Some of them were good. Some of them were laughably bad. Some of them you could have easily done practically. We were talking about it this morning, and they just didn't. A scene I've been dying to talk about is the restaurant scene.
Oh, God.
I've been dying to talk about this scene.
Okay.
In terms of the effects, the knife looked ridiculous.
Bad CGI.
A very bad CGI.
Bad CGI.
And again, it's something you could have easily done practically. If you have an effect of you need this knife to fly through the air and then fly back into somebody's hand, why not just wire the knife and have it come out of her hand and then reverse the film? You know what I mean? It would have looked realistic, and you would have achieved your effect. If you needed to go digital for it slicing somebody's throat, that's one thing.
Right.
But
Well, I mean,
with it floating and how long they stayed on the shot of it floating in the air, and it just looked silly. It looked ridiculous.
Well, I mean, you know as well as I do that, you know, unfortunately, movies nowadays, practical effects are, you know, they're the rarity. You know, which makes me nervous that if they ever do a Frankenstein, I want to see a Frankenstein makeup, not dots on someone's face.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's probably what we're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, that seemed bad CGI. I mean, it happens in every movie.
Yeah.
Because every movie has it now.
Mm-hmm. And then my problem with this restaurant scene. Are you guys going to tell me that no one noticed a floating knife besides the sister before she got her neck slit? In a restaurant full of people? Like, I get movie logic. I can understand suspension of disbelief, but some things are just head-scratchingly dumb.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
We're sitting in a restaurant.
Okay.
All right. I'm at a table, you know, maybe one ahead of you or across from you.
Yeah.
Are you paying any attention to my table?
Depends.
If I'm sitting with Kira quietly having a conversation, are you paying any attention to my table?
Probably not. But if you're
now this is a knife. This is not a gun. So you're not going to hear a bang.
Right. Yeah.
You're not going to hear a hammer being pulled back or the slide being racked.
Right.
This is a knife. Mm-hmm. Silent.
Okay.
All right. And then you get the fast slice. Mm-hmm. You know, no sound.
Yeah.
What's going to draw your attention to that?
if she had made more noise or more like a scream, that I can totally understand, but I can kind of see the point of the silence that he's pointing out.
No, that's just, I think I'm talking more about like literally how long the knife was floating in midair with her hands down at her side, clearly a foot away from her is this floating knife. And by the way, right behind the knife is a table full of people. Like, peripheral vision exists. You know what I mean? But I understand the speed. I understand the no sound, and no one really realized that anything was happening until she started convulsing and blood spewing everywhere. I get that. But here's another point. Are you also going to tell me there's no cameras in that restaurant so that when they arrest her, they don't look back to see what the fuck happened?
Okay, well, it depends on the type of restaurant.
Every place nowadays has security cams, dude.
Not every place. I mean, you can make a point. There's restaurants out there that are high class. You know, they're private establishments, and they're not going to have.
I don't think that's
cameras everywhere.
I don't think that's what we got here. I think we got a very popular public bistro.
No, I looked at it as a very fine dining restaurant.
If there is something that's that fine dining where you're talking about theft, you're talking about holdups, where there's massive amount of money's being transactioned, they're going to have cameras. They're going to have a lot of cameras. We're not talking like a side of the road mom and pop shop.
I don't.
So then that was the saving point that this is in fact a fiction movie.
I guess there's your fantasy element. Here's this high class place with no video cameras. I mean, this isn't really what we should be arguing about in this episode.
No, it isn't. But
you talk about people who dine and ditch and stuff like that. They got to identify them somehow.
Well, yeah, it's called
McDonald's.
People. What? McDonald's has cameras.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, McDonald's is gonna have cameras, but Chez Pierre is not. True. All right. Chez Pierre is not.
I don't know about that one. I think Chez Pierre might.
Yeah.
Do you want me to explain how motion detectors work?
No, we already went through that. But I mean, it's also movie logic.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have one that I kind of want to pick on a little bit when she's sitting in there with, I think his name was James, actually, his daughter.
Yeah.
And they're talking about having a girls' night, and all of a sudden you just see him absolutely like bitch slap her.
From like 2 feet away.
I was about to say, she's like 2 feet away from her, and she's freaking out that she hit her, but she's clearly across the room, so how on earth does that make sense? She wasn't even close enough to hit her.
Right.
Just plot hole.
Yeah, plot hole. I mean, bad camera work. I don't know.
Okay.
Did she slap the stupid right into her or something? I mean, come on.
Speaking of stupid, I'm sorry. Cecilia Elizabeth Moss's character is one of the dumbest movie heroines I've ever seen in my life.
Run into the dark forest with a banana. Go.
Yeah, exactly. Right. She literally does everything he wants her to do. Everything. To set her stuff up as a killer, she does it. Every one of them.
Well, because she's abused and being manipulated.
So that makes you stupid?
Oh, apparently it does.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, the attic scene. She's crawling up in the attic. She's trying to prove that he's in the house. She finds said knife that he's going to use to slice her sister's throat in a plastic bag, waiting, begging for her fingerprints.
Yeah, and she touches
it. She takes it out of the bag. Why? You can see it's a clear bag. You can see it's a knife. Why examine it?
Because you don't know if it's 100% real. You got to physically touch it.
Oh, my God. When she's trying to escape the hospital, every time he shoots a cop, he throws the gun down for what? Her to pick up.
Has that for the Me Too movement.
Oh, my God.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
I've said all I've
You're defending a movie that I know you're going to give a low rating to at the end.
All right, I've said my piece. It wasn't made for you fucks. All right? Let's rate this goddamn thing.
Oh, my God.
So before we go into our ratings, I mean, is there anything else anybody wants to get off their chest?
Who thought something was going to happen to the dog?
Well, fuck you. Who cares?
Oh, God, you had to bring that up. I was so nervous the entire movie. I'm like gripping my seat. I'm like, if anything happens to that dog, I'm walking straight out.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't, so they saved it.
One last thing I will say, just based on the character of the Invisible Man himself, which just didn't work for me is that the idea of the Invisible Man is that he is someone who is given godlike power and it goes to his head. And it doesn't connect with this movie because he's already an asshole.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Just like Wolfman in 2010.
Yeah.
Lawrence Talbert's tragedy, he's a mess before he becomes...
The tragedy is that he becomes a werewolf.
Yes.
In 2010, he was already a tragic figure, so who cares?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with this.
There was no connection to anybody in the movie, in my opinion. Kate Moss, you did. Not Kate Moss, what the hell? Elizabeth Moss, I'm tired, forgive me. Caffeine hasn't kicked in. You did connect with her for a little bit, and you did feel bad for her, and you felt sorry because you were watching all these horrible things happen to her, and basically everybody's turning their back on her.
Right.
And you felt sorry for her, and then she gets committed when she didn't even do anything. She just watched her sister die.
Mm-hmm.
And that stings, and then the ending happens, and you're like, fuck you. No more. So you have no connection to anybody. The most connection I had with was the cop.
Right.
That was it. Him and his daughter.
I liked him. I thought he was the best character.
Yeah, they were the most real characters in this
dog.
The dog.
Yeah.
No, but they were the most real characters in this entire movie.
Exactly.
I totally believe the dog was a dog.
All right. This is getting out of control. So, with that said, let's get into our rankings. But first, let's see how bad we're going to be on the bottom shit list.
Yeah. Unpopular opinion.
According to the rest of the world, the Internet Movie Database gives The Invisible Man a 7.6 out of 10.
Wow.
Rotten Tomatoes, 91%.
Oh my gosh. That hurts.
Fandango, 88%. And all those maniacs in Google Land, 89% of them like this movie. And this is only after the first weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Keep that in perspective.
There's no accounting for taste.
No.
1 through 5, ladies first. Kira, Invisible Man.
A hard 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Gov.
I'm going to take the 0.5 away, and I'll just say a 2. I mean, it's a 2. It's, like I said, it's not a complete loss. What they tried to do with it, they succeeded in spades, but it just wasn't The Invisible Man. They clearly had another idea. They had something else they wanted to say with it. It just happened. The character was invisible.
So, I mean, I'm torn with my score. I want to give it a 2.5. But out of fairness and not necessarily fairness, because I do appreciate what they did for the first part of the movie. I appreciated Elizabeth Moss's paranoia. I appreciated the suspense. They made a scary movie. They made a movie with good scares. What keeps me from giving that extra point is that this is not The Invisible Man, and it's called The Invisible Man. So I gotta go to 2.5.
So yeah, we're all circling around the same area with this one,
and we're in the minority.
I'll tell you what, I took that 0.5 away for the pacing. Such a slow-paced movie.
Yeah.
And when we finally get to it, it's good. Her first attack, when he attacks her for the first time and you can't see him, it's really good. The first time.
Right.
When they kept redoing it throughout the movie, it got tired and also got lazy.
Right.
I thought they put all their eggs into that first scene just so they could come off big with it, and then it just got kind of cheapened after that.
I mean,
she was just throwing herself around at that.
She was just kind of flopping or acting like she was on the bridge of the Enterprise, shake the camera and I'll stumble around.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, from the time that, her sister is murdered and to the time that she kills the second Invisible Man or whatever the hell he is, the brother, I mean, that's balls to the wall from start to finish. And that was the most entertaining part of the entire movie.
So, I mean, what else to say except for audience seems to like it, and I understand where they're coming from when you compare it to the other Universal monster movies, The Mummy with Tom Cruise, Dracula Untold, The Wolfman 2010. It seems like this is a breath of fresh air to a lot of people, but in terms of a faithful adaptation, it didn't succeed. And what can you say with The Invisible Man 2020? We saw it coming.
All right, boys and girls. So that's it for this time on Scarifyer. That's our opinion. Like it or not, leave us your comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you thought of the movie. Once again, I want to thank Kira for joining us. Tell us what you want to hear next time on Scarifyer.
And remember to like, share, subscribe, everything Scarifyer. See you next time.
Scarifyer.